when you're in WCW, you're the Master Blaster. Things are going okay, and then you get given the gimmick of Oz. How is that pitched to you, and what do you remember about becoming that character?
Well, Dusty was in charge then, and so they called me up to the CNN Tower, and I waited outside. I waited like 45 minutes. Dusty kept me outside. So finally, I get to go see Dusty, and he pitches this idea where I'm going to be Oz. And it's going to be kind of like the storyline will be kind of based like Tron, where I'll be like a special attraction, and they'll go through my underlings before they get a chance to wrestle me. So, it'll be just, baby, it'll be special when you wrestle. So I'm sitting there and I'm just looking at him and I'm waiting for like the punchline. And there isn't one. I said, Dusty, you've seen the film, right? Yeah, baby. I said, so the movie's called The Wizard of Oz, and Oz is it's the geographical region. It's not the character. The character's the wizard. He lives in Oz. I said, I'm a geographical region? No, baby, you just said, you Oz. I just went. So I said, so at that time I was on the road with Sullivan and we were working tag matches. So we were down in Florida and staying at a Holiday Inn. And at that time, Nancy was still traveling with Kevin. And we were sitting around a little table in the front of the hotel room, having some drinks and conversing. I said, Kev, I said, man, I got a bad feeling about this. And Sullivan just looked at me and said, take the money, brother. So I said, I started to, what he said, take the money, brother. I said, all right, because I told him what they offered me, and he said, man, dude, take the money. So go forward now, it's probably 2 months later, and I haven't seen the costume. I don't know what they're going to do, but I know that they're going to have this like major production to debut this character, and it's the same night that Scott Hall, who had prior to this was Big Scott Hall, came in with black hair with the Razor Ramon look, but he was the Diamond Stud. And I'd met Scott a couple of years earlier over in Japan. So I didn't even recognize him when I saw him because he looked so different from having that big Magnum mustache. So we saw each other in the back, and they brought me a crate, like a big box, and in it was the costume. So there was a pair of tights, a pair of boots, a giant 100-pound cape, and then there was a rubber mask with a dunce cap on the top of it. And I looked at it, and Sullivan was in the room with me. I said, dude, I said, what are we supposed to do with this rubber mask? He goes, I think they want you to they come down with it on and then take it off. I said, so, and he's got the exact same rubber mask on his costume. So we look identical, except he's this tall and I'm 6'10". And I put it on. I said, okay, this is just like I'm too big for them just to tell me I'm fired. So this is what they're going to do. They're going to do this and I'll quit. And went out and they had this big production. They had the Tin Man. They had, I don't know how many of you have actually seen this fiasco on it's definitely worth a YouTube. And I'm as green at this point in my career as this outfit is. I mean, I probably have had 35, 40 matches, and go out and we have this debut, and of course it's dismal, and the people, they shit on this character. So we go forward, and they don't know now. They don't know what to do with me because Dusty's not going to admit that this didn't work, so they're going to ship me to Japan with this character. First night, I'm wrestling against God, what was his name? Was it Hashimoto? Right, the big fat Elvis. So I'm wrestling against Hashimoto. He's the New Japan champion, and sold out. We walked through like my opening earlier in the day. I came through the floor on like a hydraulic system, and they had like some lights and stuff, but they didn't play any music or anything. I said, all right, so they're gonna from the bottom of the stage, they're gonna raise me to stage level. I'm gonna walk down the ramp to the ring. Okay, got it. So I'm sitting down there, and I'm like, I want to throw up because I'm just like, ugh. And I've got like 4 weeks of doing this every night. So I hear the hydraulics kick in, and I hear this kind of techno music. And I look, and the place where I'm going to go through, it slides open, so now I can see like where I'm going to go. I can see kind of like green laser lights, like kind of like shooting across, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. So as they slowly raise me up, and I got to realize I'm in boots and everything else. I'm 7 foot, but with this dunce hat on, I'm probably like 9 feet tall. So as we go up, I guess, of course, the dunce cap breaks first. So if you're watching, the top of that cap comes up, and you don't even see anything. It's probably, at this point, you start to see maybe my head, And when it got about here, I was kind of eye level looking out at the people. And there's this laser light going on, and this techno music, and they're mumbling something, I'm like, what are they saying? Because the music's really, really loud. And I get to about chest level, about waist level, and now I can I'm pretty much immersed into what's going on, and I'm like, oh my God, they're chanting Aze. Aze. I said, this thing is over. I mean, you think about it, like, when I was a kid, we would run home, like there'd be Godzilla week, and there'd be a guy in a big costume smashing like a cardboard city, and we'd all watch it. But that came from there, so of course Oz is over, and we go back and forth. And I mean, I have a good match with Hashimoto, and at the end of the 4-week tour, they basically tell me, when WCW goes to renegotiate your deal, don't go. You got a job with us, and you could do 20 weeks a year over here, which was what Hanson and Vader and those guys were doing 20 weeks. So I was just like, wow. So I had like a fallback, but then their company got all screwed up. Oz died, and that was that. But that was the short rise and fall of Oz.
You went from Oz to becoming Vinnie Vegas, and when you're Vinnie Vegas, I mean, for people who don't know, how do you go from being Vinnie Vegas on WCW TV to ending up in WWF as Diesel?
So it was my third character, and point, I can work a little bit. Now, I'm not by any means, I'm not seasoned, but I can throw a working punch. You know, I've got some moves. And I actually, during the 10 years Vinnie Vegas, I come up with my finish is snake eyes, where I put the guy on my shoulder and I drop him onto the top turnbuckle, which, if anything else about Vinnie Vegas, that move in wrestling, when anybody does it, like when Taker would do it or when anybody else did it after Vinnie Vegas, it was always referred to by the commentators as snake eyes. So I have that in my so Vinnie Vegas gave us snake eyes and not much else, but it did catch the attention of Shawn Michaels, who thought it, you know, he just thought the character was funny, and he contacted the Steiners, who he knew me, and so I got a call from Robbie Steiner. They were in Green Bay, Wisconsin, doing TV, and he said, "Hey man, Michaels wants you to be his bodyguard. Would you be interested?" I'm like, "Yeah, like absolutely." So I said, I just got to get out of my contract, which is a whole different story, but it didn't take much. And lo and behold, I was with the Heartbreak Kid.